Hey y'all, we're back for another episode of Non-Corporate Girls. As always, we're so happy for you to join us. And I don't even know, usually I start with a happy Friday, but today is more like a heavy Friday.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in the world today specifically. I don't know, it's a lot. Like I'm glad I made it here, honestly, to this episode.
Yes. I'm glad you made it here too. And me too, because you know how we plan for something and then we schedule it and then the day of you don't really feel up to it. And I always want to feel up to it. And I noticed that even with plans, like
hmm
how I feel today making a plan, the day of the plan, I might feel really different. And
Yeah.
so just forgive me in advance if I cancel on some of y'all on certain things. I mean, the rest of the year, I don't think I'm really doing anything except of course Philip's Friendsgiving. I'm gonna go. But other than that, I just think I'm like kicking back and unplugging. Like I really don't have the energy to engage and entertain.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I think even like Carla posted something recently about like just December, like a dry December, and I'm like, that's me. I'm gonna like if you don't hit me up, you will not find me. Like I'm
Right,
about to be ghost.
right. No, I get you.
I need the time.
The
Um,
time.
this episode though is a special episode. Well, all of our episodes are special, but I feel like we've never really talked about this topic in this way, I guess. So that's why I'm saying it's special. But the title of this episode, episode 111, is Permission to Brag or Nah.
Mhm. And I love it. I love it.
It's so good. It's so good. So there's a lot I want to talk and unpack with you on this, but before we get started, obviously we need to jump into a positive note. So do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so my positive note is that this past weekend I was we in wine and pumpkin and apple season. So I was able to spend a day at the winery with my mom and a couple of my good friends. And it was just like, first of all, this weather, I can't it feels like wrong because we're not in the season of this weather. So I know like this is problematic, but also I'm enjoying it. I enjoyed that I was out in nature. Like the air upstate is just different. It reminded me of just being on campus back in college because I was not too far from my old school. And it was just like the perfect Sunday, like the perfect Sunday. Good wine, good company, good food. And I was home in bed before 10.
Right, because that's how you spend the day. But can we talk about your outfit though?
Yes,
Because I
I
was
got a
like,
lot
this is some rich auntie vibes.
Okay, like let me tell you. So the winery has become like an unofficial what's the word? Something that you do all the time.
Like annual or oh no, like I don't
Like
know.
annual or not a ritual, but like uh, I don't know. It's just become a thing
Okay.
that I do every year that I look forward to, like a fall activity that
Okay.
I'm excited about. And so for this trip, like I literally was looking for like inspiration of like what to wear to the winery because I did want to be fashionable. Like I knew I wanted to take awesome pictures and
Yeah.
the background and the landscapes. So I was excited. And I've had that hat since like forever, but it's such a statement piece. And I
It is such
literally
a
think,
statement piece.
yes, and I literally feel like I wear it once a year and I do it up because I don't wear it the same every time.
I loved it. I was like, okay, you out here. I'm with it.
Giving rich.
But that sounds like it was fun though. I love going to wineries. I haven't been to one in a minute.
Yeah, that one is really nice. It's really good. The wine was amazing. The food, like it was just a perfect. And then picked that specific one because they had a live band that played salsa music. So that
Oh.
was different because usually you hear like that alternative rock, like
Yeah. Or
very
like jazz or something like super
correct.
chill.
But this was like a salsa band, and they were
Nice.
so good. Like they were so good.
That's awesome. I love that for you.
Thanks. It was a perfect Sunday.
Okay. Well, my positive note, honestly, I struggled with what this looks like. And I hate that because, the whole point of us doing a positive note is we want to like kind of like highlight something good because the world is so crummy. But I honestly couldn't find my positive note for the week. And I just don't like that feeling. But
Mm.
I will say that a high for me is just my community, because being able, like you, having friends, having people who are just in your tribe. And I think you've said this like maybe a few episodes back, like even though you're not feeling it, and like just having people reach out, people just like understand, it's just so important. And I felt that this week in my low. And so it was really nice. Even if people didn't even know, it's just kind of like, it was just a good feeling. And so it's just a reminder that like your community is so important. And I'm really appreciative of
No, yes, we stand for you. You are like if you're down, it's like what is going on? Because like you help bring us up, so we want you to be always in a good space. And the positive notes are for that type of reflection because every day is not peaches and creams
it.
and
Yeah.
bunnies and clouds. So it's like almost forces us to dig a little deeper because
Hmm.
there is something to always be like grateful. Whether it's like something so out there has going to a winery, whatever, or like just something that like you got to sit with yourself and be like, I was able to navigate through whatever situation.
Facts, and made it here. I love that you said that, for sure, for sure. All
Mhm.
right. So switching gears, let's get into a hustler spirit. Our first focus for Hustle Spirit is actually talking about Nicole Kane. And I don't know how many, I mean, obviously she's very popular, but for those of you who don't know Nicole,
Mhm.
we've known about Nicole for a long time, right?
She's one of like those social media vets. Like, when the space was still trying to
Yeah.
like figure out what it was gonna become, like she was one
Yeah.
of those first people like trying to make something out of it.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So, like, just a little backstory. Nicole Kane used to be like the founder of like Nicole Bitchy, right? Like, which was like that
Mhm.
social platform from way back in the day. And then she
Mhm.
pivoted to be Exo Nicole, which was like a more of an empowerment blog website, really focused on women. And just it was real positive for a couple of years, just like the intent behind it. Lots of good stories, articles came out of that. And now she's done another pivot. And me and Delilah literally like a couple of days ago was like, did we know this? Like, did we know she had like pivoted?
Yes and no. And I will say for the first pivot from Nicole Bitchy to XO Nicole, that was an evolving of her as an
Yeah.
individual as well. So I want to highlight that because sometimes, I mean, we know how rebranding goes and how you keep on pivoting. But for her, it was like, I'm doing something that no longer serves me. And she let go of a big following. She was
Huge.
getting a lot of funding. So like to be able to walk away because you know that no longer is like the path that you're trying to take. I feel you guys should definitely read about her story because it'll resonate with a lot of people when they think like they need to force themselves to stick with something or stick through something because that's what the people want, but it's not what you want for yourself anymore.
Right. And I love that she coins herself the queen of career pivots. And like that is so apropos because like every time she pivots, it's like a huge pivot. Like
Right?
it's like
It's like an
what?
awakening of a layer of her, and then
Yes.
she's like responding to it. That's what I'm saying. With
It's like an onion.
it, definitely is, and you have to choose to want to take that step because
Right.
not everybody answers to their calling.
Facts. So her latest pivot, and she really did a really beautiful testimonial on Instagram about this, which really like got our attention. But she is now the founder of Happy Flow, which is a plant-based period relief brand. And like literally we all could use that.
Yes, people who have like really tough periods with which I've had when I was younger, they've gotten a little bit better. But I know several people who suffer from like really intense periods. And remember when we were chatting about this, I had to like I guess we didn't know of this transformation of hers.
Yeah.
But I do remember following her story when she was competing to become a bodybuilder.
Yes,
So she was
yes.
heavily doing that, like that was another evolving, like, challenging herself to something she didn't do. So it's like when you think of, how sometimes you think businesses just come out of the blue, then
Mhm.
in retrospect, like this was very aligned for her. Like it was not,
Mhm.
it was just something you had to realize that she should pursue, I guess, for herself.
Yeah, 100%. It's such an interesting thing too because I feel like, and we talk a lot about this, like, what does success look like for you, right? Like, she's made so many successful brands already. And like, for her to decide, like, okay, my journey is now moving in a different direction. I need to now do this. It's like she's starting over again, but she's not though, because she's in a different phase of her life. And so it's kind of like beautiful to see kind of like how the puzzle pieces go together and how she continues to redefine what that looks like for her.
Yes, and how her, following like either gets to grow with her, or
Yeah.
how the new people who become new supporters, like where they enter at the journey.
Yeah, it's it's fascinating. And so like she had that, like she capped her testimonial on Instagram with like what I thought was a beautiful like way to just like end it. And she was just like she wants to remind everyone that she's proof that you can always switch directions and you don't have to be tied to one thing for the rest of your life. Let's continue to break those glass ceilings. I thought that was so powerful because and I've been thinking a lot about this too, just like in corporate, right? Like we all think like, oh, we have a trajectory. People want to be doctors, they want to be lawyers, they want to be in marketing, whatever. And it's like they have to continue to rise through those ranks. And it's like, yeah, for sure, do what you need to do. But if at some point in your life, I don't know when that is, you decide, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore, or I don't know if I want to do it quite like this anymore. You
Mhm.
actually get to decide and figure that out. Like, you don't have to stay on this like path you've created for yourself. Like, you get to switch it up because you're creating it. So you get to decide whatever that looks like. And a lot of people feel so beholden to like this one path, even entrepreneurs,
No, yeah,
right?
because people are afraid of change. People
Yeah.
feel people are afraid to be a beginner at something. I know I suffer at this, like,
Hmm.
because it's a challenge in having to learn something new and start from the bottom rather than holding on to something that you've given your time to.
Hmm.
But we need to stop hitting our heads on a brick wall. Like, it serves no one, not even ourselves. And the time will pass either way, whether you continue doing something that doesn't serve you or try something new that could be, what's actually for you.
Right. And it's like, so how would you rather the time be passed, right? Like,
Correct.
live your life.
Mhm, mhm. That's
So, shout out to Nicole, because she's dope. Delilah and I have been following her journey for quite some time, as I'm sure a lot of her fans have been. And we just wanted to like remind you all that like you get to change, you get to evolve, you get to figure out what that looks like. You do not have to stick to one path at all. And she's literally proof of this. So follow her story, read up on her if you haven't, because it is very fascinating, just kind of all of her like career pivots and how she's ended up to where she is today.
Yeah, shout out to Nicole.
All right, switching gears a little bit. We did talk a little bit about corporate, but transparency laws for New York City.
Yes, so they just went in effect. November 1st, and I had heard like talks about this in previous, I guess, in the last 2 years,
Okay.
but it didn't go into effect. And also, companies were trying to find loopholes of how to go against it because it doesn't help them.
Because they don't want to be transparent.
Correct. And so the whole purpose of this is to help attempt close the gender gap, because a lot of us are not having the discussions where our fellow colleagues are getting paid. And when I say fellow colleagues, I mean our male counterparts
Hmm.
are getting paid way more than us in the same roles, or even in more junior roles, coming in with a starting point that's higher than, let's say, for example, myself, that I'm in middle management or whatever. And so employees must publish good faith salary ranges for job postings, including the minimum and maximum pay. The ranges will provide applicants and current employees with more insight into their potential or current employers' compensation practices. So when you go now to apply for a job and you see like the job description at the bottom, there should be a compensation range so that you can see how you measure in the market. Of course, it varies with experience where you would fall into that. But for people who already work at the company, can kind of gauge for themselves if they are fitting in that range as well. So
Right.
it kind of does a due diligence for you, as making sure you get compensated the way you should for the work that you're contributing. But it also puts an onus on employers to do better.
Facts. Salaries are such an interesting thing because especially as like people of color, right?
Mhm.
Growing up, we didn't it was like not I don't want to say taboo, but like people don't talk about their salaries. It's just not what you do.
Money
And
talks
so
with, yeah.
yeah, and so like even just going into like as we navigate our careers and things like that, like figuring out like where should you fit, right? Like what does that look like? And then also feeling like you're working in an environment where your counterparts are getting paid more than you, but you don't even know how to really have these conversations because it's just not something that you're comfortable with or something that we do. And I think like recently people are starting to like obviously break those glass ceilings where we're talking about salary negotiations, we're talking about women being able to like
Mhm.
step up and confide in each other and understand where they should be and also doing your research
Yeah.
and knowing when you're like not being paid what you should be paid and going to the table with that. And it's a big conversation. Like even within companies, like good companies, there's still a gap.
Yes, but definitely it's been more improvement where people are
Yeah.
being more open to discuss it and have the conversations. Maybe it's a little uncomfortable speaking with it directly within your company, but people like, people that work for other companies or your friends, like
Hmm.
the discussions are being more open if, you're in a certain industry. I feel like the talks are becoming more and more.
Yeah, I like that. I'm all about transparency, so I feel like we should know these things. I also feel like, just going back to like that negotiation, like remember to always negotiate for yourself because I've been guilty of it. A lot of us have been guilty of it where we actually don't and depending on the environment or the job,
Mhm.
and you are always going to be worth more. So make sure that you do that. And obviously, the most they can say is no, right? But like at least advocate for yourself in that sense because no matter what, again, companies will continue to undersell you. Where there are some that do better than others
Mhm.
when it comes to like trying to like meet their employees, close that gap. But at the end of the day, it's still a business, right? And so you
They're
need
gonna
to
try
make
to
sure that
take
you're
it
advocating
home.
for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess like a good rule of thumb is do not accept the first offer given.
I know, guilty.
Yeah. I had it in the past as well. Like I don't
Yeah.
think I really got confident or even educated enough until my late 20s of like
Mhm.
one negotiation. And still it's a practice.
It is. You got
Every
to
situation,
exercise.
yeah, you have to exercise it. Every situation it doesn't look the same on how. And also be open, which we've said in previous podcasts, but I'll repeat it again. Um, Negotiations are far beyond monetary.
Salaries, yeah.
It's so much you can negotiate literally every term of the contract, whether that's like vacation days, maternity and paternity leave, a signing on or signing off bonus, equipment. Like it goes on and on. But again, what makes sense for the role and what makes sense for the industry. So that's where we say like do your research.
Facts. And also keep in mind your non negotiables. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, and I think it's hard because when you're first starting out, I feel like you don't really have a good sense of what that looks like for yourself.
Mhm.
But as you continue to evolve in your career, there's just a lot of things that don't work anymore for you. And so you should be open about that as well. Make sure that the companies that you are going for, especially depending on where you're at in your career as you move up, they're clear about your non-negotiables. And it like Delilah said, it ranges from salaries to everything else. And you want to be clear about that because once again, advocating for yourself is very important and your worth, right? Like
Mhm.
you are spending how many hours for this job.
Correct.
So make sense.
Yes, and feel more empowered because with the whole shift of working remote, there's
Mm,
so much more like flexibility, and so we've already shown how we can operate with this level of flexibility.
right.
So I think more employers are being more open of what a work situation looks like.
Facts. Oh, speaking of employers and work situations,
This
today is a rough day.
yeah, today's intense, and we are not even directly affiliated with Twitter, but we are affiliated in the sense as it pertains to the field, the industry, the work that we
Mm,
do. I could only imagine if I was in my last company and how internally things would be like mayhem in a sense. And the reason I say
mhm.
that is because, I work in social strategy, content strategy, and we work closely with the Twitter platforms. And so the
Right.
way the relationship correlates with agencies and businesses to Twitter is that our brands are on there. They're having
Mhm.
discussions, there's ad dollars and spend and all of that. So just so that people that are not in the space could kind of understand um, why this is very impactful. And it goes even and covers the umbrella of tech in general, because somebody had mentioned when the recession hits, for some reason, tech is one of the first industries to get hit hard. Maybe tech
Yeah.
and finance, I would say, for
Mhm.
obvious reasons. And so me and Ayanna, when we are planning discussions, we always want to come from a place of compassion and be responsible in how we share our point of views. Of course, not censoring and sharing how we feel, but just understanding that we're a small microcosm in how all this operates and flows. So just putting that out there. And I say all of that to say, as of October 27th, Twitter is officially owned by Elon Musk. And as of 9 a.m. today, November 4th, he has let go about 50% of the employees at the company. And so that
9 a.m. PST, 12 p.m. EST.
correct. So in California, it was 9 a.m. basically.
Mhm.
And the way people have found out about this was what makes this, because people get laid off every day. Like I know how to look at
Yeah.
things very objectively, and I'm not saying like, oh my god, it's not that I don't not feel bad. I do. I can find the compassion, and people lose their jobs every day. But it's just the way this they went about this situation. One, and secondly, in the way Twitter and different social, like even Facebook, like the way it's tied into our daily lives
Mhm.
is a different conversation to be had when these large waves of layoffs happen.
Right.
Where in other situations, it's not that it's not as impactful,
It just doesn't affect as much. Like
as
the
wide as wide.
yeah.
Correct. So yeah, and then you start realizing people in your circle who are directly impacted and how they lose their job. Like we are right now, like in such a sensitive time of year, it's the
Yeah.
holidays.
It's always the worst to have layoffs before a holiday season. And
Correct.
to your point, to have it happen so disheartening is just I think, like uh, add one to everything you said for sure. But like for me, I'm really like just as a person, I just feel just really bad for
Mhm.
just the people there. You know what I mean? Like it's just like to have all of this turmoil since all of this has started and then to now be here and even on like our feeds, we are seeing people share things and it just doesn't sit well. It just feels really bad and it's like and we both have people who work at Twitter
Mhm.
and so it just feels really bad, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It feels bad and it feels wrong, like in a
It's
sense,
so wrong.
in how the integrity, because one thing, first of all, when you get a chance, for all you guys listening, um look at the hashtag one team and the
Mhm.
hashtag the other hashtag is love where you work. These are both like coined hashtag Twitter hashtag for employees of how they
Mhm.
like communicated and connected across different teams and across the globe if you are an employee of Twitter. And so again, when we try to bring up things that are a little bit more touchy and could be controversial, I try to do my due diligence and make sure I come with like facts. Yeah,
Mhm.
I give my opinion and I try not to go based off emotion. But I did reach out to several people that I knew that worked at Twitter, and one of them just didn't. She told me she has no comment, and so no response is a response. Like I understand this. I don't
A
know,
hundred percent.
but like the delicacy of it, and I respected that. And then the other person was the one who told me to follow the hashtag. Shout out to her. She was super cool in just the conversation we had of why she abstained from sharing any of her point of views. And I respected if she's somebody I respect on social media. and we fellowship through the app, like sharing things. I comment on things, but I knew that she had mentioned not too long ago no longer working at the company. So it's like, for people that don't really have their ground to the ear in this kind of space,
Right.
this has been going on for some time. This was just didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's
But
been a buildup.
and it's a buildup, and in retrospect, more things are gonna come to light of how this all unfolded and how it got here.
Hmm.
But I think what it brings me, because when you're not at the company and you're an outsider looking in, you could just imagine the chaos within of like, any day I could lose my job now, or like, when would I lose my job, or if I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lose my job.
That anxiety is just, it's insane and it's not fair.
It's not. And it just goes to say, because when I looked at that hashtag, where I love to work, wait, am I saying it correctly? I'm so sorry.
Love where you work.
Where you work. One thing I Because it can be that everybody feels the same way, because I can't bring myself to believe that. I don't even know how to bring to words, but it just sounds like anybody would have loved to work that Twitter if they had the
Hmm.
chance, because the way that everyone in that hashtag has gone so hard for, like, even defending, like, just what has been created at Twitter. I was
Hmm.
like, I know so many of us only wish to work at a company that values us, allows us to be creative, allows us to work with amazing, talented people, where things are not like egocentric. And that's
Right.
one thing I took away from, like, the commonality of all these people facing the same experience, but also saying how they would do it again, and work at Twitter again if they could.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to me. And now that's all torn apart. Everything that these people build, like, I know that in tech there's so many sleepless nights, there's so
Mhm.
much demand, like, it's a hard job, even though it's very fruitful. Is You put a lot on the line of what you sacrifice trying to make it in your career, whether that's moving up or just having a significant skill set for your next move. But
Right.
I know for a fact people sacrificed a lot and gave a lot for someone to just, in a matter of hours, be able to just take it and tear it apart. And it's just like, you got to start from scratch.
It's disgusting.
It is, but it brings highlight to a very valuable lesson of, these jobs owe us nothing. And to what point are we gonna, like, I just feel like, be proud of the work you did. It mattered when you did it,
Hmm.
but we can't get married to these things and think that they're gonna exist forever.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. And it's a constant lesson, right? It's constant
Mhm.
because to your point, people get laid off every day.
And
Like it's
I've
not a new
experienced the layoff
phenomena.
firsthand, so
Yeah.
I know, like, layoffs suck. But I just feel like it was in that lesson for me that it's just like, this, you don't know when this day is gonna come. Like, we didn't
Yeah.
plan a pandemic. Like, we didn't know. We had no clue. I
Hmm.
mean, there was people who knew, but I'm talking about, like, the everyday people like us that are just like,
Right. Not like the economists who've been predicting this.
correct, or like people in politics that have inside
Yeah.
information. But it just teaches you, like, not not to not put all your eggs in one basket, because I don't agree with, like, oh, doing mediocre work. Like, I still feel like doing your best work wherever you at, leave your stamp, but also knowing that it's going to come to an end at some point, and you be in control of what the next step is, because I feel like so many people were met with, like, a sudden catastrophe, where they're like scrambling to some degree, and if they didn't, like, put their whole heart into just this, and maybe it could have been a different outcome, or people could have started getting prepared for what was
Hmm.
to come.
That's why we talk a lot on here about building your brand, and what does that look like? And it's a continuous process. Like it doesn't matter where you are. You have to make sure that you are advocating for yourself, you are standing out for yourself, you are promoting yourself, you are connecting to your network. Like these things, you don't just stop these things. Like this is an everyday process. It is a flow because you want, God forbid, whenever something happens, whether it's bad or good, you want to be able to tap into your community. You want to be able for people to talk about you when you're not in the room. You want to be like, you want these things to happen. And it takes time, it takes cultivation. And so you have to make sure that you are preparing yourself. I love to say, stay ready so you don't got to get ready.
Me too.
Like, just have your everything ready because
Your
whenever
resume
it's time,
updated, your portfolio.
everything, like here you go. Like we don't even got to do nothing. You know what I mean? And that's how, like, it's sucky that like you have to like always be that way, but like it's gonna only serve you in the future. So you just got to do what you got to do. So just let this be a lesson for everyone in any capacity. Just make sure you're constantly building your brand. That is a 24/7 job. Make sure you're doing it.
Yes, correct. And so with that, we just want to say like we are curious, and just as you all who are listening are kind of the same, like, so what happens next? Only time
Mm-hmm.
will tell. We shall see. Um this is, you know, I was telling Ayanna how this is almost kind of like when the internet took over the space and a lot of analog jobs went away with. And so like there's a new evolution in tech and technology, how we use it, how it'll be a part of our lives. So with every bad thing, I feel like also comes good things. We just got to see where the chips fall, where they may.
And just sending hugs to all of the people that we know and everyone we don't know at Twitter who's going through a really tough time right now. And for anyone who's listening and we're connected to, we are always open and down for like to help you connect with our network, recommendations, whatever you need. So please reach out to your community because people are here to help you. So you just gotta like ask.
Yes, and the community is strong because let me tell you, I was looking again. I was in these hashtags heavy just because I'm. I feel like I'm very like in the social weeds, but sometimes I'm not in them like that. So I didn't understand the magnitude until me and Ayanna spoke, and we was like, "What are we going to discuss exactly about this?" And
Mm-hmm.
so when I started just seeing everyone's point of view and like how people were feeling, like one thing I will say is like the Twitter teams and departments at Twitter, like they really band together.
Yeah,
People
they
are
do.
helping, they really band together. So it's like there's something to be said for something like that to be created. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a model. I feel like it can be a case study in college, um, even for how other tech companies model, how things happen at Twitter. It's really interesting because
Yeah,
everyone is speaking on it. So again, I don't think everybody is saying something that's not true.
right.
Hmm.
Only time will tell.
Yeah. Are you thinking of um shutting down your Twitter by any chance?
I don't know how I feel as a member.
Mm,
Like I don't know how I feel about that. I think that there's a lot of different things happening. Like when we start talking about everyone having the free speech and there's no control, that's like a whole different layer now, right? And so I don't even know how I feel about that.
right.
I mean, I have my thoughts on a lot of different things and I don't really know how I feel about it. I think I'm just right now just observing
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what happens, and I'm just focused on like the talent there
Mm.
and just trying and just like just as a human, just the inhumane way that this is going down, that doesn't sit well. So like I don't know. What are you thinking?
I think I haven't like thought to do away with it because I feel like
Yeah.
it's gonna still be integral in just how information is shared.
Uh-huh.
Um, even before, like, you know how they say white Twitter, black Twitter,
Mhm.
marketing Twitter, like there's different pockets of Twitter where spaces were created for certain subjects. So I still feel like there's always been negativity on social. It's dependent on you, how you use it and what you're going to use it for, and how I choose to filter what comes on my feed. I don't
That's a true
know.
point.
Yeah, so I don't know to what level I'll still be able to control in that way, or are they gonna force me
Right.
to see things I don't want to see? Then again, I have to wait till I cross that bridge. But as of
Mm-hmm.
right now, I still feel like it's helping me to stay in the know with certain information that I feel like is gonna help me to
Yeah.
make decisions on
It's
things.
an observation phase.
I'm in the observation phase and just seeing how things, and I haven't been really adamant on Twitter. Like I'm not there, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm still even noticing what are the changes. Like I don't know what immediately was done away with or what immediately has been implemented or removed. I know a lot of it is probably from the back end that we can't realize, but as a
Yeah.
user, I don't know how
Yeah.
I've been affected just yet.
Yeah.
Aside from the free speech and how you can use it, but so yeah, I'm just observing just like you, but I'm not gonna shut down my page just yet.
Yeah. All interesting.
Mhm.
All right. Well, that was a lot on Twitter.
And
We got to
hustle
take a short
spirit.
break.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Thanks for sticking around. We are back with Off the Record. So, this is actually really sad. We have a lot of sad things happening today, but we did want to give kind of a shout out, rest in power to Leslie Jordan. Um, for I'm sure everyone knows by now the story of what happened, but he passed away in a tragic car accident, and he was a really big like
A
deal in the
light,
community.
a light.
Yes. It was just like everyone was like, "Oh my god," like in my feed like I
Mhm.
can't. And I'm just like, "Wow, this is what wow." I was just like, "Wow."
Yeah, it was sudden. It was super
Yeah.
sudden because he was such a joy, seemed very healthy, which I think
Yeah.
the car accident provoked maybe underlying conditions. But had it not been for the car accident, he would have been well and good as he has shown us. It didn't seem like he was fighting any health, concerns. But he
Mhm.
was such a ray of sunshine. I feel like he really became top tier during the pandemic with his sketches
Mhm.
and just or his comical ways and approaches to like things he saw on social media.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm like, I just felt like I just saw him on The Masked Singer. I was just
Right. It was sudden.
confused. I know.
And
So,
that's just weird in that way.
it is, it's and there's too many of them happening back to back
Mhm.
like this next one, right? Like rest in power to Takeoff. That was also sudden.
And so avoidable. That's what
I'm
hit
just
pierces in that one because
yeah.
it's just like, how are people so comfortable with taking someone's life?
Like nothing. Like it's another day.
Hmm. Like we know that you cannot come back once you're killed, once you're like you die, like
Yeah.
don't come back. And so for people to seeing how so many people have lost their lives over the years, like for nobody to take a step back and hesitate or be like, what am I do? I don't know what you think in that moment, unless you're like protecting yourself from some type of harm. But yeah, it's really sad. It's sad for the hip hop community, for the culture,
Yeah.
um, the things that people bring up when it comes to hip hop, like the blame game of whose fault it is. Because I feel like when someone passes away, there's always a finger to be pointed at because people feel like someone needs to take the blame. And I feel like everybody needs to take accountability um, for the messaging that they share, for our just our society, because it's deeper than the music. The music is a reflection of the trauma and the burden that we face as a people, and so
Mhm.
it goes a step back to like who's not helping us get out of these situations and
Right. What healing is not happening? What the growth is not happening? What does this look like with the environments that we've been placed in, people
correct
been placed in, the opportunities that are,
lacking.
or yes, I was gonna, I couldn't figure out the word. Yes.
Yes, no, I get it. So it's just like when we come from the backgrounds that we come from and have the experience that we have, I feel like for people like me and you, we can definitely look at this situation with like a critical mindset and like critical
Hmm.
thinking. And that although there are rappers speaking about, misogyny and like all these things that are hindering our community, like again, it goes deeper to the root of the problem, which continues to not be addressed and continues to not be resolved. And this is going to continue to happen.
Yeah. It's disheartening. It's sad. Like a life is not cavalier and it's just sad. So
Yeah.
these were two sad things that recently happened. So just we're holding the families in prayer and just everyone because lights that have been taken far too soon, you know?
Yes, but hopefully legacies that will continue to live on forever.
Right. Speaking of legacies, that was actually a good little transition. Speaking
Okay.
of legacies, so Black Panther, I'm so hyped
Are you going to
about.
go and watch
Well,
it?
I already got my ticket.
Oh, okay. You're ahead of me. I need to get it. It comes out the 11th, right?
Yes, I'm not seeing it in full transparency. I'm not seeing it on the 11th because I actually have to go to a wedding, but I do have my ticket for the weekend of, and you know, I don't do regular movie theaters, so
Doing
you
an
know,
IMAX experience.
I have to do my I pick experience.
I
Like I need comfort.
Kick back, have your snacks and your drinks.
Exactly. But I'm hype. I'm so hype. And so in that lane, you know, Rihanna, she dropped a single for the soundtrack, and it was a tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and
Mhm.
it's Lift Me Up, and it was written by Thames.
Such a beautiful
And
song.
yeah, right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, at first I had to listen to it a few times
Mhm.
to see how I felt about it, but I love the tribute behind it.
Yeah,
And
like if
obviously I
you
love
like,
Rihanna.
yeah, yeah, you're
Anna.
for me, it was like because I know it was associated directly to the movie, it
Yeah.
made sense, and so that's how I received it. I think if it was a standalone, it would have took me a little bit aback that like this is the song that she's coming out with from not coming out with music for so long.
Right.
But I think this was a great initial like segue back in.
It was a solid drop. And to your point, like I could see this rolling. First of all, like fun fact, I love soundtrack singles.
Me too. Me too. I'm a fan of soundtrack music. Period. Like
Me
right
too.
now, Raising Canaan, they are winning in the sound.
Such a first an insecure soundtrack was always lit. But
You're in.
yes, Raising Canaan, yes, really, really good, right? I'm like, I just love musical scores. But I
Like
could see
that's
this
somebody's
running.
job, guys. By the way.
I know, I know. I could see this like in a credits. Like I could see this as like close out. Like it just if it was so fitting the
Hmm.
song, and so you know, shout out to everyone who worked on this for such a great collaboration, and obviously for a tribute because this is a legacy. Like I mean, I don't think we can never think about Black Panther and not think about the legacy. You know?
Course, and the story and like how proud like young kids and people of color
Hmm.
just have like come together to celebrate it. It's really a celebration.
It's powerful. And even like and just like the fact that like people wear white to the theater are gonna wear white to the theater. It's like there's always something.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
just I
black.
don't know, it's such a yeah, it's a movement.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
movement.
I love it.
So speaking of Rihanna, not to keep bringing her up, she just happened to be doing a lot of things in a while. Like it's just what it is. We got to
You
report
can't
on what the people want to know.
okay. Or what? Are you never want Tiana now? Okay.
So Rihanna, well, you gonna watch this too, Delilah, because I told
I,
lad wasn't it? Didn't I watch one of them at your house?
yes, you was the one who put me onto them because I was late to one, and then we caught up, and then we watched the other one. So now this is like an annual thing.
Yes. So for those
Mhm.
of you who don't know, Rihanna is dropping Savage Fenty show volume 4. It drops on Amazon on November 9th. So everybody tune in. She also just launched activewear for Savage Fenty because she keeps rising.
Mhm.
And the show is I feel like she always tops her shows.
He
And
does
so
the themes of them. I be so obsessed. The food
I'm like,
form. It's a production.
it is a production. And so this year, entertainers include Anita, Burna Boy, and Maxwell.
Like they
And
took
then,
off the freaking shelf. Like, come
okay. And then featured appearances by Cara Delevingne, Joan Smalls, Marseille Martin, Shirley Ralph, and Taraji P. Henson.
whom we love. We are a fan of.
It's going to be dope. So tune in. Just wanted to call that out because, you know, we got to support our girl. And then in the lane of new music, have you heard any of these new songs, Dee?
I think I heard shirt. I just didn't like. listen. I feel like I heard it in passing. And I haven't heard the Chloe song with Lotto, but I did listen to, and I haven't listened to it in its entirety, but Drake just dropped his collab album with 21 Savage. And it's already problematic as fuck.
No comment.
Yeah,
No
so I
comment.
hate. I love Drake, but I'm just like, damn, why you gotta do my girl like that? Like what? I don't understand why you need to mention people that they don't even like
He's
bring you up.
salty. He's
Yeah,
like, I just don't.
thought it was kind of
But
funny because one thing I will always stand 10 toes on is that two things can be true at the same time. He was whack
not 10
as,
toes.
10 toes down. He's whack as fuck for that, but I love Drake as an artist.
Yeah. I be having my moments with Drake, but as an artist, like I like his music
Yeah, like his
for the
music, but
most
like
part.
what he stands for, I don't be rocking with it because it's just like you don't say much. You're not in the public eye. You don't do interviews. Like we can only go by like the music and how you
Hmm.
present yourself, or certain underlying messages that you try to message without overtly stating,
Right.
but we can tell what your stance is, and it be corny.
I can't. But in the lane of new music, SZA dropped a new single called Shirt Off, I think, and then it's off of her upcoming album. And then also Chloe has a new song featuring Lotto for the night. I've listened to both. I actually really like Chloe, and so I
I
do
love
root for
Lotto.
her. I root for her. And SZA hasn't dropped an album in a while, so
Yes, I definitely gotta go and listen. There's a lot of new music that dropped actually, so.
I know I feel like music. A lot of music is always dropping around like this time, like the
Mhm.
holidays and like the winter.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. So now we got to switch gears into our topic of the moment. It's crazy because we've had mad stuff to talk about and we actually have not even gotten to like double down on the topic yet.
Yes, and
But here we go.
mhm,
So we said at the top of the episode, the name of this episode is Permission to Brag or Not. The reason why this came up is because actually I saw, well, it's come up a lot in like careers and life, but I actually saw a recent article or someone posted something on my feed, one of my feeds about not just being like about them sharing their work or like making sure you have your receipts. And I always talk about this too, right?
right,
But
right.
then it was like a conversation of like, when can you brag and when can you not brag, and is bragging even the right term, right? Like is it a humble brag or are you just like a braggy person? What does that look like?
Yeah, because I
So
think bragging comes with some negative connotation around it. It doesn't. It's
it
not a
does, but
positive.
like should it?
You could change
Perception.
the perception or the meaning. I feel like if you're not gonna brag on you, who will? And you would hope that people are, because like what the point you made earlier is about, building networking and community. That when you're not in the rooms, there's people advocating on your behalf. Like to me, that is some that's powerful, even more than you bragging on yourself. The people who's going to speak on you when you're not there. But it starts with
Facts.
them knowing what you do, and the only way they're going to know what you do is if you speak on who you are and like what you've accomplished.
All right, so let's keep that in mind. Let's talk about this article that you shared with me because Delaila recently shared an article from Girl Boss. I don't know how many of you are on Girl Boss. We're on the platform. We tune in.
Mhm.
But their newsletter every day, they pretty much send out. This latest article was quietly winning on your own. And so when we were talking about this, Delilah kind of brought this up, and there was some really interesting, I thought there was some interesting points in there. I did kind of pull out like a little bit of a little context. So I'll read this. There's a similar concept that's introduced in the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott about how there are the superstars and the rock stars. So two different groups at work. If you're in the rock star mode, you're a force of stability in your team. You're happy in your current role and you're most ambitious outside of your 9 to 5. You don't feel the need to go above and beyond, and you're cool with that. Superstars, on the other hand, are all about wanting new opportunities, being a change agent in the workplace, and finding ambition, purpose in their job. Today, we're speaking to all of the rock stars. So they're talking to the people who aren't the braggy type, who aren't those change agents. What
Mhm.
do you think about that?
That's really interesting, and I don't think that there's a problem with being in any of the groups. I
Hmm.
think it just all depends where you are, because let's say you about to go on a maternity leave, or um I don't know, you're pivoting, you may step back to kind of like analyze. And so you're not going to go above and beyond. You will do your work and show up and present yourself. And then there's people that like, I think they need to do more if they're trying to get to the next phase in their career. So you kind of naturally have to like show that you deserve it, especially if you're competing with other people who may want that spot as well. So like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to outdo that person? And it's only by either taking on more projects or being strategic. It doesn't mean you have to burn out. And so I think this is super interesting, especially in the whole burnout culture, right? Because lately there have been talks of like doing what I came here to do, nothing more, nothing less.
Right. Like that quiet quitting type of flow.
Mhm. And so I think it's personal for each person on how they approach this, what they feel they want to do. What I think is challenging for me is depends on what the work culture is like, for because some of this could become toxic,
Mm-hmm.
or it can have you overlooked, right? Because if
Mm.
you're not like the one raising your hand all the time and not being the pick me.
Then do you not matter?
Correct. And so again, aside from it being a personal choice, I think it also has to do with the culture of the company and how they operate. And are they like putting carrots in front of you to make people, do things? So
That's a really good point. No, I like that you said that. That's a great point, especially for anyone listening, because work culture is super important, right? And so how do you thrive in it? Then there's so many different types. So I think that's applicable. I think for me, I've been sitting with this, and what I think too is both can be true, right? Like you can be a rock star and a superstar at different points in your life,
mm,
even in the same point in your life at different times. And so I think about that because, like, as you elevate in your career, like, for example, I knew that there were times in my life when I was probably a superstar, not in the same way, but like, I was definitely trying to make sure that I was moving up, doing certain things. But then I also know that there were times when I was a rock star in those same roles where maybe I had counterparts that probably it was probably their moment. Maybe they needed to have
mm.
this project.
Well,
They
you
needed
you
to
took
do
the
that and
back
I could
seat.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because in order to be a good leader, you also need to be a good follower, right? And so like every moment doesn't need me to be at the head of everything.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean I'm still not shining either.
Ooh, that is very true. I like that. And again, and to your point, depending on the project, it's like understanding what's your skill set. Like, is
Yeah.
in this aspect am I gonna thrive, or in this aspect am I gonna be the one absorbing? Because then in
Yeah.
the next phase, I can be and step out and be at the forefront because of what I learned and how I showed up in this situation. So I
Yeah.
think it's a roller coaster ride in so many different variables that change of where you work, where you are in your career, how like what is it that you want to accomplish. So it's definitely shedding light and having those conversations, and how are you getting managed, right? Because if you're not getting like motivated, if you don't understand what motivates you, you may get put in this box and that was not even what you wanted.
Right. So we're going to get back a little bit to this because I have some more questions about this for you. And we also have a question too from the community. But we do need to switch gears a little bit and talk about hashtag obsessed with. And this kind of fits a little bit because this is someone who has had different evolutions throughout her career, right?
Rock star and a superstar, I'm sure.
Yes. So Valeisha Butterfield, who you talk about often as
I
well.
mentioned because I follow her on Instagram, and just she's one of those people that speaks when like it's something important to say. She's not really
Hmm.
here for the fluff, but like her moves are boss moves, power moves, and she has a lot of impact in the tech space, and it's just been cool to see. I don't know her personally, but I know people that do know her personally, and as just a woman, a black woman, somebody in the C-suite, she's definitely somebody that like is inspiring.
Facts. So I can share a little bit about her for people who don't know. So Valeisha recently exited as co-president of the Recording Academy to return to Google as VP of Partnerships, and she was formerly at Google as global head of inclusion.
Mhm.
Prior to Google and the Recording Academy, she worked at HBO Sports as a national youth vote director for Obama for America and was National Executive Director and SVP of Rush Communications, the Hip Hop Summit Action Network. She is also co-founder of Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. And what I love about her is the intersection of her worlds. Like she's been very much in D&I, partnerships, entertainment, and like you said, tech, and kind of where all of that meets. And it's cool to see like her evolution kind of still ties in all of those things.
Yes, and she's very, very heavy on cultivating and helping nurture the next wave of people in media in different
Yeah.
facets. And that's where the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network, that's the work that they do. Like, so it's all about the youth and just putting people in positions of opportunity.
So very cool. So shout out to Valeisha. She has not been a guest on the pod yet, but hopefully we can get her on. But she is our hashtag obsessed with for this episode.
Yeah, so go follow her, check her out, and see the work that she's done. And her father is actually in politics, which is really awesome as well.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating, like her world and kind of like that, all the things that she knows and how she
Yeah,
kind of like applies it in her. It's just, she's very cool. She, like Delaila says, she's boss.
yeah, she really is.
All right. So getting into let's talk about it. We want to talk a little bit more about this topic, but we do have a question from the community, as we like to say. So the question is, hey NCG, I struggle with self-promotion. Oftentimes I forget to promote my work to others, and other times I hesitate with fear that I'll come off too boastful. I was wondering if you had any tips on how I can better navigate this in my career, and what has your experience been to date? So
Yes,
it's a loaded question.
it is. So my experience is that I learned that when I am trying to, I feel like as we continue having experience and having different jobs, you get better and better at telling your personal narrative of
Mm-hmm.
what you bring to the table, how your skill set applies. And so when it comes to, self promoting, you definitely need to practice that as a muscle, because it really will determine your next opportunity
Mm-hmm.
if you know how to convey it really well to the person that you're telling. So I've learned in jobs, one of the first things I do is when I log into my email, I create a folder, and it's the brag folder. And any email that's sent about work that I've done that was great, anything that I've accomplished, any win, any KPIs, whatever it is that I know that's gonna help me to put my story together and help like strengthen it, is going to go in that folder, because we don't realize how much we do, especially if you've been in a job 3 5 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so much gets brushed under the rug that when it comes time to like you sitting with yourself and reflecting, like what did I do when I got here, and since then, that brag folder is going to help remind you, like, you are that girl, you are that guy, you did
Okay. You that person,
that.
okay?
Okay? Yes.
I love that you said that because we all about brag folders here, or whatever you want to call it. Brag folders, your receipts, your kudos, whatever works for you.
Your
I
ongoing portfolio, updating
Yes.
after every job. Like,
I agree with you 100%. So I do the same thing at every job as well. Whatever form that looks like, but it's really important. I think here's a question for you though. When do you think you got comfortable doing that? Like, can you pinpoint a moment or a
yeah,
specific like level in your
it was
career?
it was more so like at the dawn or at the brink of applying for a new opportunity, a
Mm,
new job, because now you have to update your resume to tailor for this role, and now you're trying to pick and choose what skills and what things you've done that pertain to this role. And sometimes I would find myself stuck, like, but if I see everything that I did, then it makes it easier to understand what skills are transferable. So it became in that process that I really took like habit to do so. And as I continue doing so, as I apply to opportunities or even in networking and introducing myself and letting people know what I do, it became so much more easier because I these things were a top of mind because I had a place to look at them and know what I did. It wasn't something that I had to like, oh, I forgot that I even did that. I'm always reminded because it's in this place. So it was at the brink of like searching for new opportunities and roles, to be honest.
I love that you said that. And so yeah, I agree. So going back to our question here, I think that there is, like, I completely understand where she's coming from. I think we've all faced this in different capacities, but to everything you said and just kind of like listening out so she's clear, definitely getting comfortable with your story and who you are and being intentional about that is number one and important. Like, you are the only person that knows all the work that you put in. You're the only person that knows what you do. And so you need to make sure that you're able to tell everyone else that story in whatever way that looks like. Now, in terms of telling it, it doesn't always have to be a brag moment, right? But you are able to kind of communicate that in different ways. Maybe it is on social media. Maybe you do want to tap into like some type of engagement post or just share something about what you've done. Maybe it is in your circle of friends. Going back to our earlier point, maybe you do want to share highlights of like all the work that you do and your friends know, because again, they need to advocate for you in rooms that you're not in, and they won't be able to do that if they actually don't know what you do. So you want to make sure that people are aware of that, they're clear about that, and you're clear about that. But then the third thing is having those receipts, having that brag folder, having whatever that looks like. I love to say receipts because I think for me, I didn't know that I wasn't comfortable with bragging or sharing my story as much as I do now until I was in a toxic environment that forced me to do that. And the
Mhm.
reason they forced me to do that is because I was getting tired of everyone feeling like they were doing the work that I was doing
Right, right.
and getting the shine for it. And so I had to figure out, how was I going to communicate this? How was I going to tell them, no, this is what I've actually done and this is what I do? And so that, it was like a force, but not at the same time, because it helped me get comfortable. But like, if you don't share your story, nobody will know and nobody will care. And
Exactly.
so every opportunity I get, I'm constantly sharing. Like, it's to the point where I feel confident to know that like people are clear about who I am. Like, from
Yes.
what they see, my messaging on social, my messaging in life is very consistent. Like, you can tell who I am and how I'm showing up. But that was a process.
Yes.
And to your earlier point, I had to get clear about what my narrative was going to be. So I think that all of those things together is worthy of bragging.
Absolutely. And I do want to add in even two more things. One is that sometimes we think that what we do is not like a grand gesture, or is like not
Mm-hmm.
super important because the people that we're around doing it are doing it too and they're experts. But someone who's not in our field, who doesn't understand what our work is, like, will see that as valuable because it's something that they can't do.
Right.
So it's worth like mentioning and bringing up because sometimes I feel like the same thing when we do a social, like, oh, there's too many people doing this type of work, so there's no space for me in it. But all those people have different clientele, different um pockets of expertise. Like, you can't touch every bucket. Like, there's a lot of work out here for all of us. Like, we can all
Right. No one's going to tell it the way you do it anyway. But you know what? A lot of people, and you and I have had this issue for a long time in the past, a lot of people have issues considering themselves an expert in anything. And so
Mm,
that's another thing, right? Like, you don't think you're an expert, so you actually are not going to come off that way. You're not going to actually share what you do because you think everyone else around you is the expert, whatever that means.
right, right, right. And then the other thing I was gonna say, that I feel like one thing I've become annoyed with in networking or just getting to know people, that I wish more of us would do away with, is beginning any conversation with what you do or where you work. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's tacky as fuck. I think it brings no real premise to you really trying to get to know me, Delaila, as a person. Because tomorrow I can be a social content strategist at X company, but that doesn't define me because the next
Right.
day I can no longer be there, but I'm still Delilah at the core. Somebody who shows up, who's responsible, hard worker. Like, so I feel like being around people that have common interests, that we vibe because we have the same taste in drinks. We like to shop at the same place. Like, getting to know me as a person, I think it's more valuable for growing my network than just it being always like career led, career focus.
But it goes back to growing, how to grow your network and how to actually network properly, right? Like a lot of people can walk into a space. I mean, and granted, this is evolving for sure, especially with the digital networking marketplace, right?
There's
But
things to do, outdo, or who's better, or like,
yeah,
are you gonna not talk to me because I don't do the type of work? Like, what does that constitute exactly? You having to know what my level and skill set. And I feel like this is where that toxic like environments get created, because it's like people are trying to know what you do so they can see what they can gain from you.
it's very opportunistic. It's very like elitist. And that's why oftentimes when I've gone into networking events, I'm always trying to like think about or talk to people in a different way. Like my favorite thing is to connect over food, right? Like
Mhm.
oftentimes in networking events, I'm actually standing by the food. And so
Really?
that's an easy win.
Yes, like don't try that mac and cheese. It was not that good actually.
Or also like, did the waiter come out yet?
Right. Simple. Right. Oh, I love what you're wearing. Where did you get that top from?
Right. Like it doesn't have to be. It's like, I mean, I think a lot of people just need to learn how to be human first. And I think that's hard.
Okay.
So,
Like we already know we had this networking event because we're all professionals.
right.
Get that out the way. So it's like, what more are we bringing other
Yeah.
than those things about ourselves? And I think we need to start being more comfortable and stop being so freaking awkward.
Yes. And in the same lane of comfort, get comfortable with who you are and get comfortable with bragging or whatever the word looks like for you. If you need to change the word from bragging, change it to whatever you need. Give yourself the permission to let people know what you do, who you are, how you show up. And it doesn't just have to be work. It's what you do, right? Like if you're great at volunteering and you want to put that out there. If you're great at creating, do that. But just get comfortable about showing who you are in authentically show that,
And
because
it's not,
there's a lot of people being inauthentic.
oh, okay, but those will always come to light, like, because it's but so long you can sustain something that's
Yeah,
not real. So
that's
whatever.
true.
Um, what I was gonna say is that if you find yourself feeling challenged and not like, because this is something that you have to kind of sit with. It doesn't
Hmm.
just show up of who you are and what you wanna kind of share with the world in your gifts. Something as simple as asking like close friends and family members, "Hey, what are three words you describe me as?" Or
Hmm.
"What are three things that you would come to me for?" And gather all that information and see where the themes come in. I know that I am the connector. I I am the connector. I bring people together who have certain skill sets that I know can work magic. I'm the person that has the T and the N when it comes to anything social media, when it comes to like what people come to me for. And so you start seeing that within that, because since it comes so simple to us, we often overlook it. But these
Right.
are the things that are actually like our value points.
Yes, your value prop, 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I love that. The great tips. And like you said, exercise. You have to
Mhm.
exercise this. And it's something that you're gonna have to do throughout your career, throughout your life. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you just do this exercise now and then all of a sudden this is good. We evolve. Change is the only thing constant. We evolve as people. So the more you evolve, the more that will change. And you will have to constantly do this self-auditing to figure out what does that look like for you and how do you like share your story and get comfortable with that. So it's a journey.
Absolutely. And we all on it together.
We all on it. Listen, I'm there. We're all there.
I read a meme that said that like we're all on a journey together, but separately. But
Hmm.
we all have different places we're going.
Yeah. Well, I hope that helps. Friend to the brand.
That was a great question.
It was, and great answers always. Always love kind of like digging into like our past and kind of how we got here. So that's always cool.
Yes. And the title was Permission to Brag or Not. And we are giving you permission. So brag on.
Brag on. On that note, we are so out because we're so over our time. We like to keep this short.
I gotta listen to the whole thing though.